say, what would happen if we went down there to cop?
Are you serious?
Why not?
Yeah, I remember going to New York and living on the street and diving deep and really getting close to some of the folks that I met there that were living similar lives to Harry Goldfarb.
When the topic of method acting is discussed, it is usually in the context of actors behaving badly on set, refusing to break character for long periods of time, and resorting to seemingly extreme tactics when taking on a role.
In the New Yorker story, the intensity of Strong's acting choices were called into question, specifically one about his request to be tear-gassed while filming a scene in Aaron Sorkin's Trial of the Chicago 7.
Was it true that Aaron said no to your immersive style of wanting to be tear-gassed as Jerry on Michigan Avenue?
It is expected that actors provide viewers with an honest and truthful performance, that the line between themselves and the characters they are portraying be indistinguishable, so we too can be momentarily lulled into the storyline set before us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it ain't gonna be me.
It is only once we get small glimpses into their processes, their systems, their methods, that we begin to question the very performances that we demand of them.
Is that your job is an actor, okay? What is that job in your opinion?
But what exactly is method acting, or the method? What techniques exemplify this acting style? Why has it become so controversial? And why in recent years have audiences seemingly become more interested in an actor's process just as much, if not more so, than their performance?
I worry about what Jeremy is putting himself through on a daily basis when we work.
To fully understand the history behind the method and the system is evolved into today, it is important to first look at the system of acting developed by Konstantin Stanislavsky.
Stanislavsky of the Mosque.
Following a crisis in which Stanislavsky himself gave a poor performance during a play, he sought to develop what he called a system,
which had as its purpose to have a kind of truthful playing out of the situation.
Up until this point, the silent film medium demanded that actors' performances be accompanied by mechanical cliches, exaggerated gesturing, intense melodrama, and a greater focus on externalization of the role rather than inner experiencing of it. This is what Stanislavsky sought to change. Through his Moscow Art Theater, he was able to put this system into practice, documenting what techniques worked and what failed. During this period, two of Stanislavsky's students made their way to the United States, setting up the American Laboratory Theater, and began teaching hundreds of American actors, directors, and playwrights in an early version of Stanislavsky's system.
I was a student at the Laboratory Theater, and Harold Clurman invited me to come to a meeting, and I came, and I was hooked. He said, "Please follow me," and I had the tendency to follow a man, and so I followed Harold Clurman into the group theater.
By 1931, Harold Clurman, Cheryl Crawford, and Lee Strasberg had set up their own theater collective, the Group Theater, which would transform the teachings of Stanislavsky's system into a new American method of acting that would have a significant influence on the acting style of the mid to late 20th century.
And so from morning till night we were working.
The work was, of course, mainly on the play, but also on training these actors in the method that Lee Strasberg had devised from Stanislavsky.
Lee thought that he was instilling his own system, and he was in the forefront of all that new way of looking at acting, and I guess he was.
I believe the method is the only basic means for solving what I consider to be the actor's problem.
Drawing heavily from Stanislavsky's early version of the system, Strasberg's method relied on an actor's ability to access their own emotions through sense memory exercises.
You have that naturally, but when you did it here, you went so much with the personal thing that you lost some of the things that she has.
I'm sure you all know what sense memories are. Sense memories are just really hearing something that isn't there, seeing something that isn't there, smelling something, doing something that you know, that you've experienced. So the only way you can do that is to stop thinking about what it was, get in this relaxed state, and then go through your senses. What was I wearing? But not what was I wearing. Can I feel what I was wearing that day? Can I hear anything that was happening that day? Not what was happening, because that's a conscious thing that's going to shut you off, but by going through your senses, your smells, your seeing, your hearing, your touch, something is going to hit and it's going to bring back the emotion.
As time went by, certain members of the group began struggling with Strasberg's teaching style.
Do what I ask you to do and not go further.
Well, but maybe I'm going further and I don't see it.
Many of the actors resisted digging into their own emotional past.
I began to look inside, and I was a sensitive person.
I didn't want to think of when was I moved by my sister when she vomited. I didn't like that whole thing.
In 1934, Stella Adler, troubled by Strasberg's emphasis on emotional memory, traveled to Paris to study with Stanislavsky himself.
We worked for weeks on clarifying what Mr. Stanislavsky understood was being made into a kind of mystery in America. I don't think he wanted that.
It was during this trip that she learned how Stanislavsky's stance on actors using emotional memory had changed.
She said that Stanislavsky had told her that this was something we abandoned years ago.
He had written about it and actually taught it for a bit, but then he gave it up.
Upon her return to the United States, Adler revealed what she had learned to a less than enthused Strasberg.
And she came back and told Lee, and he said, Stanislavsky is wrong.
I tried all the work, and rightly or wrongly, whether it's Stanislavsky or not, it works.
The actors began to think of him not as someone who is always right, which is the way it started, but as someone who is not always right.
It is this event that would mark the ultimate demise of the group theater and divide between the method of acting taught by Strasberg and those taught by such greats as Adler and Sanford Meisner.
Frankly, I don't know who was right and who was wrong. I think whatever works is right and whatever doesn't is wrong. But they never did solve their disagreements. And so some people, I think, tended to take Stella's experience as the right one, what Stanislavsky had told her, and others stuck to Lee's point of view.
For the next 3 decades, Strasberg would teach a style of acting that would produce some of America's most iconic actors, who would elevate his style of teaching from a method to the method. However, detractors would come to see this method as unusual, emotionally damaging, and self-indulgent.
It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business.
Yeah, I'm in no way method, whatever that means. I think that is actually total bullshit.
I always say about people who do method acting, you only ever see people doing the method when they're playing an asshole.
I think that there's this idea that's perpetuated of just like staying in the reality of it.
You don't go to work with Daniel Day-Lewis. You go to work with whoever his character is.
To me, Dan Day-Lewis got worn out at 55. He decided to retire because he couldn't go on doing that every day.
I have heard that you spent 6 months training to do your Italian accent in House of Gucci, and then you actually practiced it, like lived it out for 6 months following that. Is that true?
People are like, why did you keep your accent the whole time? I'm like, can you imagine going in and out of that shit?
Rather than aligning with the style of acting Strasberg taught, today method acting has come to be synonymous with extreme bodily transformations.
You can't act emaciated. You have to become emaciated.
Extensive research for a role, and going to exhaustive lengths to live the life of the character. From De Niro spending weeks driving a taxi around New York City for his role in Taxi Driver.
I mean, you went and actually worked as a cabbie, didn't you, in New York?
Or gaining 60 pounds to play boxer Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull. To Meryl Streep learning how to speak Polish and German for her role in Sophie's Choice.
If I learned to speak Polish, then the diphthongs and the sounds of that language would be in my mouth.
To Daniel Day-Lewis truly living as his character in The Last of the Mohegans.
You split your wood where the grain is open. See, we've got some split. See how we split it over there?
The method today has become synonymous with great physical transformation, and in turn has almost become a dirty word, laden with controversy, stigma, and criticism.
I kind of shy away from the term method actor because it, I think, has taken on negative connotations.
How do you ever talk about that thing without making it sound kind of grotesquely self-important?
Jeremy, it's a little more complex because a lot of people just immediately say he's method, and he would say that he's not, but don't know, for all intents and purposes, I feel like he kind of is.
I don't really know what method acting is, what it means, to be honest.
I'm kind of bothered by the misconception. I'm kind of bothered by this idea of like, method acting is fucking bullshit. It's like, no, I don't think you know what method acting is if you're calling it bullshit. Or you just worked with someone who claimed to be a method actor.
Increasingly, the public's fascination with sensationalizing the behind-the-scenes processes of actors has them seeking out stories that become less about understanding why actors may go to great physical and mental extremes to get where they need to go, and more about declaring their processes to be pretentious, silly, or damaging.
You know, I don't think I sound like him still, but I guess I must because I hear it a lot.
Rather than seek a true understanding of what method acting really is, viewers become more concerned with the actors' processes, even more so than their performances.
Let me get this straight. You had the option to eat a gelatin bison liver and decided to go for the real thing?
Rumors of on- and offset antics become more important than the work the actors are creating.
It's also interesting how this stuff all takes on a life of its own. But I never gave Margot Robbie a dead rat. That's not true.
You know, driving here, there's this feeling of like, am I going in front of a firing squad?
You know, the depth of anyone's appreciation as an artist for what their work is and how they get to where they want to get is, you know, it's their fucking thing. There's nothing but judgmental, shallow people out there who are looking to start shit over things they don't understand. You know, like it's like I said before, it's like if it's not mathematics, then it's all fucking poetry. And you got to figure out which of those things is going to guide you to get you where you got to go.
But the legacy of method acting is still all around us, and the instances where actors utilize it in healthy, productive, and meaningful ways abound.
We hardly talked because we were in character all the time. So once I'd done that work, I was kind of trying to be him all the time. So we're good friends now. But yeah.
We were friends on the weekend.
We were friends at the weekend. It was very weird.
From coaches like Kim Gillingham, whose work with Sandra Oh, Jane Campion, Benedict Cumberbatch, and Bill Pullman blends aspects of Strasberg's method with Jungian dream analysis.
I'd like to thank my mentor, Kim Gillingham.
I worked with this woman called Kim Gillingham who's, who encouraged me to have these dreams. I had the dreams. I wrote them down. I met with her and she sort of got me to lie down with soothing music and everything. It was really just facilitating a conversation.
I do the same work, but with someone named Greta Seacat, who Jesse and I work with.
I have a woman that I work with. We do a lot of dream work.
Well, explain to me how that works.
You write yourself a personal note, and then whatever you dream, and if you don't, you just keep doing it until you dream. And then you use whatever you've dreamt for your character.
To actors like Laura Dern, Kirsten Dunst, Ryan Gosling, and Andrew Garfield, whose work with Sandra and Greta Seacat again blends these approaches.
Her name is Greta Seacat, and her mother is Sandra Seacat, who studied with Lee Strasberg back in the 80s. I started studying with her. I was introduced to her through a mutual friend, just kind of fortuitously. And
like I do a lot of weird ritual stuff and dream work and like lots of unlocking unconscious, archetypal kind of images in the psyche.
I met Sandra Seacat and started working with her at 17, and she luckily let me learn from her and start taking class with her. And so it became my family in me learning how is there a path to empathy for ourselves and everybody else, going through the journey of story and also finding it healing and incredible and a gift versus torment-based.
Rarely are the situations where actors stay in character, maintain an accent, transform themselves physically, or immerse themselves deeply in the world of their character, and simultaneously maintain great working relationships with their cast and crew mentioned in interviews or headlines.
My technique's really weird, and it's sort of the same for every character, but I discover different things in the process.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
There's a theory where you can sort of trick your mind and body into having experienced something. So I go back and I kind of rebuild a life for my character, but what's great is I don't own any of it. So I can go home to my daughter and feel really separate. And when I haven't done that work, when I've worked on sets where I haven't really done that kind of work, I end up damaging my psyche a little.
Instead, it becomes more about highlighting the few instances where actors went too far into a role, negatively affecting the cast and crew or themselves. The truth is, actors may use many different techniques when approaching a role, and this can change from project to project.
One thing that's always helped me is really never judging other people. There's always going to be something that they'll land on in the end, and often we all just have to go through a bunch of silly stuff first.
Deciphering what techniques an actor used to prepare for a role misses the point entirely. Whether they use the method in the more classical sense of emotional memory or what we've come to describe as the method today matters much less than the fact that they're using these techniques, however silly or extreme they may appear, to do their job. They're just using whatever tools they have at their disposal to give the most truthful performance. And as viewers, all that we ask is that they make us believe in what they are doing.
If you are a writer who is dealing directly with actors, the best advice I can give you is respect what they're doing. Even if you think it looks silly or sounds pretentious or confusing or pointless, it doesn't matter. Respect what they're doing because it's what they need to do to get where they need to go.